A very good evening to yet another Wednesday when we bring you another edition of Behind the Headlines. My name is Charles Odongtho, and this week, today, we will be discussing very important topics. One of them is the problem of mental health in Uganda. The other, the threat of terrorism to this country. My guests are already seated here, but let's start with that clip.
One of those silent effects on us is the problem of mental health. Worsened by various causes, including depression, loss of loved ones, economic pressures, loss of jobs and insecurity, among others. This is a silent disease affecting the growing Ugandan population. According to experts, indications are strong that mental health illness cases are on the increase. Estimates by the Butabika Hospital puts the figure at 35% of Ugandans as suffering from mental disorder, representing 14 million Ugandans. 15% of these require urgent medical treatment. This percentage has pushed Uganda among the top 6 African countries with high rates of depression disorder. Elsewhere in the world, World Health Organization reports of 2017 indicate that in 2017 alone, 5.1% of the global female population was living with anxiety disorders, while 3.6% of their male counterparts were also affected by the same. This Wednesday on your favorite program, Behind the Headlines, join Charles Odongtho, your host.
2021 is the year, and
Dr. Juliet Naku, the Executive Director of Butabika Mental Referral Hospital, Brigadier Felix Kulaije, Honorable Ojara Mapendunzi, and your panelists, Council Sarah Birete, discussing in detail the issues making the major headlines in the country.
ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome again. And Honorable Jara, Dr. Naku, Brigadier General Kulaije, and Council Birete, you are most welcome to the show. Let me start with you, Doctor. A staggering figure there that that statistics show: 14 million Ugandans are suffering or potentially suffering from mental problem, what we call in the street talk, mad people. I'm sorry for that word. Is that how bad the situation is? Tell us.
Well, good evening, viewers. Thank you for inviting me here. Mental health is an important part of our health. There isn't health without mental health. For that reason, we need to be concerned. Is it a problem? Yes. Like in any part of the world, the mental health of individuals is very important because it affects very many things. And so we need to be concerned. The problem is big everywhere. Certainly, Uganda is no exception. The studies we have done in different places in this country have indicated that there is a varying problem in different places. It's not the same, but certainly anything between 20 and 30 or 35% of our population may have, 10 to 35% of the population may have some degree of mental ill health. The commonest of these are what we call the mood or common mental disorders, particularly anxiety conditions, depression, and there's quite a bit of alcohol and substance abuse related disorders. These form the bulk of what we see. And in clinic settings, you can get up to 30% of individuals who walk into a hospital clinic presenting with those conditions. In the general population, remember the general population is a bigger population, so the denominator is a big one. It may be anything between 5 and 10%. But those common mental disorders are commoner. Now, the situation has gone even worse, especially with the advent of the COVID pandemic and other social pandemics. But the situation is getting worse. Fortunately, people are beginning to see this as important, and that is also, I think, causing more of it coming to the fore, because now people fortunately begin to realize that there is a problem and it is important to address. Is it a big problem? Yes. Should we do something about it? Absolutely.
These studies, the statistics we are talking about, can you place them in scope? When were they done? We just need to understand, because you said COVID has made it worse. Did you do a national survey, national study to find out which region perhaps is most affected, which age groups? Can we get that from you?
The studies are numerous, various, and done by different people. Most of them have been studies done in groups of people in different parts of the country. For example, there were studies done in northern Uganda, where my friend Honorable Mpenduzi comes from, that highlighted the problem of depression and post-traumatic stress in that area. That was a few years after the insurgency in the north. And those studies showed a huge figure, something like 60% of all the people they interviewed at that time to be unwell. We have had studies done in Kampala, we've had studies done in Kamuli, we've had studies done in Luwero, and all these studies show that the problem isn't a small problem. By the way, the prevalence of HIV in this country, the last I saw was about 6.4%. We are talking about mental health at a prevalence of more than that, 10 to 30%. Should we not be worried? Yes, we should. Good.
Let's start it from that. I don't know who to bring in first. Let me start from Honorable Mpenduzi. You, fortunately, you worked in the local government for 10 years or so, or more actually, 10 years at the helm of the district administration, but even before that you had worked as a councillor before. So you have traction in that area to start with. How big was the problem talked about? How big could you see this? I'm sure you interacted with persons like Dr. Naku, not necessarily her, but persons in her profession, to know the magnitude of mental illness in that part of the area where we come from. Share with us that. And also as an MP, when she talks about the problem being big, when you say some figures showing even 60%, it affects everybody, and you see.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for allowing, or creating this opportunity so we can talk about mental illness. And just as she put it, it's good that people are beginning to talk about mental illness, because I think for quite some time, cases like mental illness, and there are other cases that do not come out prominently. And when that happens, then we don't pay much attention. And I'm happy that the discussion, the debate is beginning to grow. And just as she put it, there has been several reports, several studies, giving a very disturbing image of northern Uganda. And for some of us who have been there and knowing what the people went through, those statistics are true. And those statistics are linked to so many other statistics that have been provided. For example, a few years ago, it was reported that domestic violence in northern Uganda was at about 64%. And then when you begin to dig deeper, there are many other factors that are linked to that. The kind of experiences, the traumatic experiences people went through during the period of the insurgency. You know, poverty is skyrocketing, and there are many other things that are talked about. So when you look at all these factors, you then begin to appreciate, you begin to believe the kind of information that is provided, just like doctors just provided. We also need to accept the fact that, like, from 2015, around 2015, 16, 17, the number of suicide cases reported, people taking their lives. Gulu, actually Moro was leading in the Acholi sub-region. Almost weekly, more than 5 or 7 people would be reported to have taken their lives. And then
5 weekly?
Weekly. That was between 2015, 2016, 2017. It was terrible. So different people got together, and as the local government, we said, this is unacceptable. What has gone wrong? And different studies were conducted. Again, it links you to cases of mental illness, the effects of the conflict, and again, when you look at some of the interventions that were taken, like the PRDP, and we kept on insisting that the component of psychosocial support needed to be given a lot more attention, because you can put the infrastructures, you can build good roads and hospitals and all that, but if you don't deal with the psychosocial aspect, what people went through, affected the entire population. And so what doctor is talking about is a fact, and of course not only northern Uganda, other parts of Uganda as well, but northern Uganda seems to have a much bigger problem. But coming to what you have just said, as a member of parliament, yes, doctor has given a picture of the situation, but there are things we need to talk about. Yes, I want to appreciate that government has tried very much when we talk about the mental health structures. There are structures in place. We have the National Referral Hospital, where she is, and then the regional referral hospitals. I think some years back there was some support that government provided through the African Development Bank to establish, mental units in the regional referral hospitals. I think about 13 or so. And it's true that government has done well to make sure those facilities are in place. But when you look at the aspect of human resource, I think out of the 13, there are only about 6 psychiatrists. I don't know how you may have the best word to describe them. And so the information I have got is that we do not have enough manpower. So the question is, here we are given a picture that is worrying, but again we are not doing enough to make sure we address that problem. And also the aspect of financing. How much do we give? We have the health sector budget. How much, when you look at, I think around 2017, 2018, 2019, I think the allocation that goes directly to mental illness, aspect. I'm sure it's not even 3% of the total budget under the health sector budget. 1%. So, yeah, actually she's saying 1%. So the question is, if there is...
Of the health
exactly,
budget.
Of the health sector budget. So that takes us to the aspects of, financing. How much attention do we put to such a situation? What about the financing aspect? What about the human resource aspect? How do we, so it's a big problem, and that is what we have to confront.
Okay, good. General, you are a man in uniform, and first you participated in so many battles. You participated in the entire insecurity period in northern Uganda up to South Sudan, CAR, Central African Republic, and all these places, Congo. And I need you to share with us how the security forces themselves, who are very stressed as well. We are in Somalia for a mission, an African Union UN mission. We are in South Sudan to pacify that area and all the borders. To what extent is or are the security forces themselves concerned about this? How big is the problem? I'm sure the professional UPDF, for starters, must be having some statistics somewhere about their own officers.
Well, thank you, Charles. Good evening, viewers and fellow panelists. Allow me 30 seconds to start from a good note. I'm coming from...
Even the discussion is good.
I'm coming from Kampilingisa.
Ah.
And discussing mental health, Kampilingisa was known for rehabilitation of, should I say, juvenile offenders. But there's something good in Kampilingisa. There is the National Farmers Leadership Center that is teaching us work, service, and sacrifice. The three values that are almost getting extinct in this country. So at OWC, we are training the nucleus team that is going to be working with me in mindset change. As you know, the director mindset change. And so we chose Kampilingisa. I had never been there myself, but could never be a better choice. The team is committed, and I would wish we would have money committed for the farmers who can't afford to pay like we paid for ourselves, to go there and learn farming practices. Because we wake up at 5, we exercise, 6 we go to farming, 7 we go and bathe and go for breakfast, then start classwork. And the things they are doing there are very amazing. So I would invite Ugandans to visit the National Leadership Farmers Center in Kampilingisa, and you see the things they do, where you can, even this platform, you can have cows, mushroom farming in such a small place. I thought I should start from that note. Now, in the UPDF, NRA now UPDF, because we started then, and the conditions were tougher than they are today. But what helped us were two things. First of all, as NRA, we fought for a cause we are convinced about. You know, when you have a conviction, whatever the challenges, you have the values to withstand them. And I can assure you, I don't remember mental cases prior to 2010. And yet that's the time we fought most wars. Indeed, the casualties you faced were people who lost arms, limbs, and what have you. But mental health was not a problem then. But you see...
But there were no tests done.
No, but you see, you don't, some of the cases you don't have to do tests. You see the incoherence of the person. You see a person exhibits behavior that's unusual. Now, today, however, we are beginning to get some of those cases. I don't have the figures, as you know, I'm not from the medical department. But as a social scientist, the difference between medics and social scientists, that for us, we study phenomena. You don't wait for the, when you see certain phenomena, you want to ask yourself, what is the cause? And in my own personal interest, I've come to find the following, that young people of today, you see, the purpose of training for sports is to train the body to withstand the challenge you find in the competition. If it is football, there will be hard tackles. But if you have done sufficient leg exercises, even when they hit you with a hard boot, your muscles are able to withstand. In boxing, they will punch you and you will withstand the blow because you have trained. Now, similarly, if you recall, the African societies of 20, 30, 40 years ago trained human beings to meet the challenges of the world from home. In fact, one of the reasons they told the boys not to cry, it wasn't brutality. It was telling the boy, you will face even worse things. So you grow up when you are being trained to withstand challenges. It's not the case today. So what's happening is that many of our young people who are joining service now, one, they are not joining because because of a conviction. They are joining for employment. All right? Then you take him to a place like Somalia, where the heat goes up to 40 degrees centigrade. The humidity, I can't even tell you the degrees. So by the time he ends the tour of 1 year, if he's not careful, it will get to his brain. Okay? Whereas previously, we were ingrained with the understanding that the cause you are for is much bigger than what you are suffering. This is temporary, and indeed it was temporary. I was walking, I know Guru Padel and Agago districts, like I know the back of my hand, and I walked them on foot. We used to walk 30, 40 kilometers every day. And at the time, there was no network in some places, so you'd not even hear from your family for a whole week or a month. Maybe you get a chance of climbing some hill where you would pick a network from Kitgum, and you're able to call your family. But we're able to withstand this. So the point I'm making is that they are the receiving end of a changed dynamism where families are no longer training children to face challenges of the world. In fact, when it gets to middle class families, it is even worse. We make the children believe that life is supposed to be soft all the way. Yesterday, I was hearing some people commenting that if a person never sat on a trailer of a tractor going to school, you can't understand that these things happen. So, I think, I believe in prevention rather than heading for the hospital. And the preventive measures we ought to indulge in are indeed, first of all, family values being strengthened. And two, enabling the young people to appreciate that life in the world is full of ups and downs. So when you meet them, you are not the first and you're not the last.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Sarah, from your reading, how big do you think this problem is? Even as from your observation as a concerned citizen, health is, whatever type of health is important to all of us, especially to know and be aware of. And you hear the kind of statistics that Dr. Naku presents, the kind of different variables that these people are talking about. What is your take?
Well, I think we, as a society, we are recognizing the danger. And if you look at the percentage of 35 out of our population, with 15% requiring medication, it's really a very high number. And I'm sure in our adult lives, we have interacted with people with serious mental problems that need medication, either through school, either through work environment, or even at family level. Because if you are talking of 35% of the population, This means that in our extended families, there is a high likelihood that we know a person who has a mental challenge that needs medication. But what stands against this challenge? First is traditional beliefs. Many people who get mental challenges think of spirits, think of witchcraft, and don't seek quick medication. So by the time they go through these rudimentary, traditional, and in most cases useless treatments, by the time they get to hospital, it is too late to manage. But if we had enough sensitization, early detection, early medication, it is possible that you can have medication and live a normal life with a mental challenge at controllable levels, just like any other disease. But the stigma in society. Many families, even when they get a mental challenge of one of the individual, they have hide the information. Because how does society look at us? Will they think we have spirits in the family? Will they think, then you start suspecting those who believe in that, who is bewitching your children. Instead of getting help and know this is a normal disease, it happens, the doctor will tell us whether it's genetic or not. Maybe we need also to tackle that angle. Even if it's depression, anxiety levels, elevated stress levels, do we have elements of genetic transmission of this disease? I think we need to understand that aspect as well. But then when it comes to treatment again, availability of treatment centers, knowledge of where to go. People who are in the countryside, how do they get to Butabika, which is the commonly known? Now the referral hospitals have units. I saw the challenge, I think it was in Irida, where the unit was also used as a COVID center. One of the referral hospitals. So, where? Yes. So you can imagine, and it's important also to know how you are mitigating COVID in these mental health facilities. Has COVID reached there? How are you dealing with it, with these people who are mentally challenged? How do you manage in such a situation? So when you come to this aspect, then we have less appreciation of the challenge at the national level. And that has been said by the budget allocations. So you have poor or inadequate funding. When it comes to outpatient facilities, beyond the national referral hospitals where people can go, most of these are religious founded. It is where you can find, I know in our area in Western Uganda, we go to Mushanga, which is a Catholic health facility. There is outpatient facilities. And I don't know how many people even have that information. So when then it comes to the health personnel, Butabika, which I think the recent statistics show you have a 500-bed capacity with 450 staff. I don't know whether those are in Butabika or in all other units, you would tell us. And then the seclusion for us from the human rights perspectives. What has come out in our spaces is the seclusion rooms in these facilities. And of course, this is largely a challenge of funding. But how do you treat the extreme cases? Are there human rights, taken care of? That is now really our bias as civic organizations. But then the other challenge or lack of information is administrative procedures. Because we have voluntary cases, we have compulsory admissions, you have referrals. So at the National Referral Center, for mental health for Butabika, how do you deal with these cases? Referrals from the countryside, voluntary people who, if I feel I'm not okay, my family brings me there. If I have been compulsorily brought to like the people picked on the road by KCCA vehicles and other volunteers, how do you deal with them? Because some people, even when they have knowledge of this, they fear. It's like taking your relative to Butabika is like condemning them to death or abandoning them. So this is the information that we really need to come out.
Okay, Dr. Juliet, so many things that we need to make follow-up of. And personally, I think that we need to, this is something we need to discuss again and again, not just today, starting today, to try and help our people break the icing and ensure that the, you know, the stigma is removed by discussing it. Because when I have malaria, I just tell someone that, you know, I am suffering from malaria. But when does, if you're saying 35%, that's a huge number. And these people, when they say someone has tested maybe positive for mental illness, there is nobody who will accept to tell you that I have a mental illness, I am sick in the head and all that. In fact, when they say you are sick in the head, means they are insulting you. You see. In fact, they are insulting you. So let's first get from you the major concern. Is government doing its part as far as mental health is concerned? And to what extent do we see that? What must government do? What is needed to be done to start assisting or helping persons who are sick of, you know, mental issues?
Thank you very much, Charles. Is government doing its part? The answer is yes. But before I go into that,
but is it doing enough? When you say 1% of the 1% of the health budget, Doctor?
For 35%. Before I come to that, Charles, let me pick it from General Kulaije and I think from Sarah. The reason that General Kulaije never saw mental illness in the army before 2010 was exactly because of what Sarah just mentioned, the stigma, part of the reason. But the other reason is, and I'd like to clarify this, when we talk about mental health or mental ill health, we don't necessarily mean that everybody in that category requires to be admitted to Butabika Hospital for medication. It's a broad concept of, you know, well-being with, it happens on a gradient, right? That there are some people that have conditions that are commoner, may be milder, but are actually affecting the way they function in life. That is important because they may affect work, the exact thing that General Kulaije talked about. They may affect the way they interact in society. So when we talk about mental health, we're not talking about the madness that you talk about at the beginning, although that is how society generally perceives these things when we talk about them. Certainly before 2010, there were people who were mentally ill. General Kulaije did not see them. One, because often they may not be having behavioral disturbance, severe behavioral disturbance, which most people think is mental illness. People who are depressed, for example, may become quieter instead.
So you think someone is humble?
Exactly. They become quieter, they may not get out of the house, you know, they don't cause any stirring in the community. So people don't pick them up. People who are anxious often may withdraw from, for example, social environments because they have social anxiety. But when you do that, remember, you may not function adequately in certain environments. Someone with social anxiety cannot come and sit here, for example, and talk like we're doing. They may not perform at work because they don't want to be around people. They have that anxiety. But they're not going to be shouting about it, and the community does not pick them up. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The truth is that problem is there, but the ones that come out with disturbed behavior so severe to be admitted to a place like Butabika are only a small proportion. And so we need not lie back and think there isn't a problem. there is definitely. What we need to do is to actually find ways of identifying the problem and ways of mitigating the problem. So we need the interventions that are right at the community level where people live. We also need to educate the public so that people can identify these things and bring them to the fore. Let me tell you, children sometimes drop out of school because of mental ill health, which often parents call bad behavior. Omwana aline daru, like stubborn. And yet, these kids need help. When we help them, they perform better. How you begin to see a child beginning to develop mental ill health is that they begin to deteriorate in their areas of function. And for children, school is the first place you look at. They begin to deteriorate. But these things are not known to the public, and so they don't identify them as challenges with mental health. And hence, people think you must be undressing or beating everybody up to be mentally ill. No. So is government doing anything? Government is doing a lot. To try, first of all, and create some human resource. It is still very, very inadequate, but there have been efforts. Because government has been providing some scholarships to train people like me, psychiatrists in the country. But you know, we're expensive and we take a long time to train. Okay, we take a long time to train, so we can only produce a few at a time. So we need more funds to be able to train more of us to be able to work out there. But it's not only psychiatrists. We work in teams. We need psychologists. We need social workers. We need occupational therapists. All these form part of the team that help to manage these conditions. These people are hardly available in the health system. Okay. So we need to do more in that area. We need to provide not facilities, but services within the community. Sarah talked about this, where people can actually more easily access at least services for identification. Someone you can go to and they identify that, yes, you have a challenge. You could go to this health center and get some help, whether it's medication or counseling or things like that. So all these things need to be worked on a bit more. But there are definitely some efforts.
Okay, thanks a lot. Before I bring you in, I wanted to say this. And I want to thank the Daily Monitor for compiling some of these things. This compilation, I think, was made in 2014, when there was a shooting by a soldier who had come from, I think, in Toroko or Kamwengo or something. He had come back from Somalia or something, and he shot 7 people. I think some of them, I think, his family members. Then Monitor compiled other past cases. One, on April 15th, 1983, a special force police officer in Soroti, ran amok and shot and killed 16 people at the funeral of a colleague before committing suicide. 16 people. In June 26, 1994, an anti-smuggling unit soldier, Richard Komakech, shot randomly at a wedding guests, killing 14 on the spot. 12 died later in hospital, and 13 were injured in Naguru after one of the female guests refused to dance with him, just refusing to dance with him. December 25th, 1994, a police constable, Alfred Ogwang, attached to Kamwenge police station, shot revelers in a disco in a trading center, killing 13 people, wounding 14 others. March 23rd, 1998, police officer Fred Ngobi shot dead 7 people, including 4 Chinese workers at a Chinese construction company, before later killing himself. October 15th, 2006, a UPDF soldier called Bono Lino shot 7 people dead, including his wife, child father-in-law at Laguti IDP camp in Pader district. Sorry about listing this, but I think it's important to, because now you would, in the past we would think some anger or brawl or a fight. But when you are talking about soldiers coming out of, you know, stressful situations, they have seen so many terrible things, then police officers, then people who are treating them, doctors as well, I'm told, who are treating some of these cases, then now we are beginning to open eyes. September 28, 2006, a UPDF soldier, Private Andrew Wanyama, attached to the 409th Brigade in Arua, shot at a crowd in Paradise nightclub, killing at least 3 people, injuring 4 others. 2009, Private Nicholas Muchunguzi, attached to PGB then, this was the SFC of then, now Special Forces Command, opened fire on revelers at Top Pub in Kampala, killing 8 people after a lady reportedly made off with his mobile phone and money. He later shot himself. This was just down here. 212, 213, 213, 213, 214, many. And again, I want to thank Monitor, a report by a colleague, Frederick Musisi there, and another journalist, for compiling this. General, do you think that the problem before 210 that you referred to could have been that we had a health system which was low in taking notice of this, and therefore we were not yet, we were not yet capacitated enough to record some of these things, to test, but actually the problem is bad.
Charles, we in the military are lucky in that we are sort of a closed society. And one of the part of our practice, daily practice, is to monitor each other. That what you hear of the daily parade statement is actually to account for ourselves. Who is present, who is sick, who has a problem. And in the event of any antisocial behavior, we are quick to detect it. I will tell you, I had a case of a soldier who went quiet, as she said.
Became humble.
He became extra quiet, was losing weight, and I took interest. I asked his colleagues, what's wrong with this one and so? And I came to learn, again, it was an issue to do with the woman. So I counseled him. I gave him money to go home. 2 weeks later, the young man returned much better than he had gone. The cases you have cited all come to one thing: alcohol abuse. You can hear the Ntoroko case. I was unfortunate to be the one sent to condole the families. You know, I call it unfortunate because to face a family that has lost a loved one. In fact, one of the families had lost 2 ladies. They were twins. But where was he coming from? A bar. All the cases you have read, okay, it's about alcohol abuse. And I wanted to add this, that if you check these figures doctor talked about, it's drug abuse that is increasing the case. It's not just about depression, it's drug abuse, it's alcohol abuse that actually lead to some of these mental ill health that we tend to see. But the cases of the soldiers I've highlighted is either because the wife has, like the case of Ruzira, when the man, all his savings he had in Somalia was sending to her to do business, only to come and find she has another man with even a child. In fact, no, she even told him, even this child is not yours. I mean,
I remember.
Yes, there are cases of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and of course, passion. Not mental ill health.
Is that so? Is that
yes.
so?
The cases you have highlighted Well, I'm
No,
saying,
no, I want us to understand, and doctor is here to help us.
Yes.
Because
Because what I'm saying-
for us, we are just doing analysis. General, what I want to ask.
Can I complete this point? Then
No,
you can ask.
what I just want to ask, so that
Yes.
you can add on it, is this. Yes, you say this happened. The killings happened. The question that makes me doubt and accept that that probably was a case of mental illness is, what is the rational decision a clear-headed mind would take when you are faced with a challenge someone has taken over your wife? Would you rather let the lady go if you are the man? Or if you are a lady, you say, okay, let me handle it this way? Or would you take a decision, let me pour boiling water or acid on this person, and therefore, is your mind okay to go beyond the normal?
Of course, Charles, people have various ways of dealing with challenges. Okay? People have varying degrees of stress management on their own. Indeed, you have seen even among the civilians, people who pour acid on their opponents, if I may use that word. And at the end of the day, they are not mad. But in the heat of the moment, they lose it.
Okay.
Okay? This soldier, indeed, who has been working for this lady he thinks is his wife, it turns out that actually she was squandering his money on somebody else. You think those you know are the only ones?
Let doctor help us. But feel free, Sarah,
there are many soldiers.
all of you feel free to interject.
Yes, there are many soldiers whose spouses have gone with other men. And they move
just
on.
Let go.
They move on. I had the case of a captain in the Pajule. The man, I found him crying. And I asked him, what's the problem? He said, my wife went out with another man. Now she has come back, thrown out my children. She wants to stay in my house. And because of the operational tempo, the brigade commander had refused him to go. All right? Like what I said about monitoring each other closely. When a colleague changes even slightly, you are under obligation to find out. So I actually intervened. I offered to command both my unit and his, so that he could be allowed to go and solve the problem.
Okay.
But
Someone called Bruno, Sarah and then doctor. Someone called Bruno, says, good evening, Charles. Thanks for this show. This is an important one. To General Felix, you are saying that you never saw mental health problem in Army until 2010. This may not be true. I have two brothers who joined the Army and way back and in artillery department, and they suffered the same issue and they suffered the same issue then. That's one key issue the Army needs to work on. Actually,
Yeah, then it means which year?
actually, he doesn't show the year. He says, actually, the citizens are the ones who suffer the consequences and not the Army. That's why Afande is not aware. That's what.
Maybe he didn't see. But if I may ask Afande, please. Most of the people, especially those returning from hard missions like Somalia, there was even debate that maybe they need to be cancelled first before they are reunited with their families. There was also a debate that maybe the system should allow them to keep 50% of their money, because many of them that went into situations of killing and stress, others don't kill, but one of the causes of mental health breakdown is elevated stress levels.
Yes.
So some of them look at the gun as the easiest thing to use when they are armed. I don't know. I'm talking real as an ordinary person.
Yes.
So there was debate that the system should allow them keep 50% of their allowances, so that even when money is squandered, they don't become so desperate to the level of taking their lives
and those of their loved ones, and even counseling sessions before reintegration. So at one time it attracted national debate because there were several shootings by people returning from Somalia.
I saw an example in the US. I am told, I think there is a center, they call it holding center. General, I think we discussed this one time.
Yes.
In Virginia, I think, where all soldiers who are coming from operation zones first go there. They don't go straight home. That's what the US government does. Every soldier coming from Afghanistan, from the Gulf, they are coming from Cuba, they are coming from wherever, they first take them to that center. They counsel many, and they test what varying level of mental challenge someone has, and based on that, then they can reintegrate you into the society, take you home and all that. Minus that, you don't go home straight. That's what I'm told. I think we can check. Yes, Honorable Mapenduzi.
Well, I wanted to answer Sarah, I thought, before he can ask.
Okay, please go ahead.
Like I told you earlier, that we do every day, we check on ourselves. And so we are able to detect anything that is out of the norm. 2, before deployment in any outside mission, we do preparation.
Yeah.
We spend the whole 6 months in single,
Yeah.
preparing the mind and the body of the soldier before deploying him or her in the mission. And for us, our training is not about only the physique, but psychological conviction. What you are going for, is it a justified cause or not? Because that plays a big role when you meet challenges wherever you go. When they return, another 6 months in the single, they don't join their families immediately. Never. We take them to single for another 6 months. 2 reasons. One, of course, is to observe individuals, whether they are changed or they are still the same. 2, you retrain them, because in the peace area, it is more as equals. All right? You may find even a warrant officer who is supposed to be a leader deployed on his own. So when you get here, you want to retrain them. Yes.
And I don't want, Afande, you are right.
No,
what I
but
don't
the
want
issue of
us,
the money.
I don't want the public watching to look at this as being that we are discussing the forces.
No,
It is
it's
just
mental health.
one of the important institutions or you know,
Now
groups.
on the question
but
of the
it's
money.
the general. By the way, I am actually told, I know that Juliet professionally may not tell us, I'm actually told this problem is facing the clergy as well.
Yes.
It is a big problem.
No, it's
amongst
across
the
society.
clergy. Politicians, I am
It's
told,
across society.
many people who are actually our representatives are not fine mentally.
Charles.
Many of us are not.
Charles.
So it is a big problem.
It's a problem across society.
Yeah.
So we can't deny it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to clarify on the question of the money. I'm shocked to say that they should be allowed to keep half. It's all their money.
I know, but there was that.
Allow me to give you information. It's all their money. Nobody keeps it. The difference, and unfortunately, we in this country never bother to seek information. The allowances paid the soldiers do not come from Uganda's budget.
Yeah.
It comes from the African Union.
Yes.
And there are occasions when the African Union delays to disburse this money. Okay? So when their allowances delay to come, we don't have an option but to wait. However, unlike other countries, for us, we continue paying them salaries even when they are in the mission area.
Yeah.
So stress cannot arise because the soldier is not failing to meet the needs of his family. He may fall short because of the money not being little, but his money, monthly salary, is there.
Okay, Honorable Mapenduzi.
Well, I think I just like General put it, I think, and you rightly noted it, it's not just about the army. I think we need to recognize that it's a much bigger problem. It cuts across. And it's important that the country needs to carefully look at how to build a mechanism. It's not just about the health facilities. It's not just about looking at regional mental unit and all that. I think it should be about how do we first recognize that this is a big problem that as a country we need to confront, but also how do we begin looking at how to build systems that can easily detect and support. Because even in our workplaces, how do we support the people we employ to go through difficult situations so they don't end up getting into such kind of condition? And it's a fact that I think we have not had the opportunity to begin to look at it broadly in that direction. The example you're giving, like in the US, it's because they have recognized. And it's not only with the Army. Every workplace has got policies that look at how to deal with cases of, depression and work pressure and all that. And so people can, from time to time, be supported. But there is something I wanted to pick from what Doctor said. Yes, government is trying to do its best. But you see, from my angle as a member of parliament, I think we need to take responsibility. We should not be lamenting. We should actually be looking at how to provide solutions. We have got people like Doctor who put their lives on the line, trying to do what they can. It's unacceptable to allow them continue in that kind of environment without providing what is required. She talked about the manpower, human resource. It's true what she put across. I think if we are to look at the ratio, I think it's almost 1 to 100,000. Looking at the psychiatrists and the people they have to attend to. It's
to 1 million. Population.
To 1 million. You can imagine. Yes.
Sorry?
Yeah, one psychiatrist to 1 million.
Impossible.
That is it. So it's a much bigger problem. And she even talked.
I mean, you can't attend to them.
Yeah, and Doctor said training them is difficult. Yes, training them is difficult, and we.
Expensive.
It's expensive, exactly. It's expensive. Yeah. Yes. Let me put it that way. And takes a long time. And if you are to look at some of the statistics, so far you have about 500 or so psychiatric clinical officers. But those who are employed in the public sector is about 130 something. All right? They are about, we have been able to train about 2,000 or more psychiatric nurses. But from that, only about 500 are employed in the public sector. So even the little we have been able to train, why don't we create an opportunity so they can go and help in dealing with the problem? So that should be the angle. But of course, there is need to put a lot more attention in making sure that they are supported. Resources should be provided. But the other thing I want to pick from General.
You can't call me Kanu.
No. I keep. By the way, I keep on praying for you, so you go higher and higher. So I am not going back. Yes. You talk about
prayer. He will accept.
Yes. You talk about the aspect of prevention.
Yes.
I think apart from looking at what government can do and what the medics have to do, I think we need to take responsibility as a people, as community members.
Correct.
And deal with the question of stigmatization that she talked about, but also how do we begin to regulate certain things that can lead to that. General talked about the alcohol abuse and substance abuse. In northern Uganda, where it's reported highly, when you try to dig deeper, you actually realize the rate of alcohol consumption in northern Uganda is almost the highest. And when I was chairman of Gulu, that's one of the things I was dealing with. And actually we ended up coming with a piece of legislation that addressed partly that problem. But right now, as I talk, I am told the problem has gone back. There are some very terrible products that are being consumed. And when you especially young people who are developing mental illness and all that, when you try to dig deeper, it's partly because of the use of some of these products. And I think we need to take responsibility, first as parliament, but also as government, to begin getting tough on some of these things, because if we are able to prevent that, then we will avoid wasting a lot of resources in providing treatment and all that. So prevention is key.
Thank you. Doctor, a very interesting program, and from what even people are saying, someone just said, a very interesting program. I'm watching from Washington. Someone from someone called Dennis, and that we are following. We will definitely need to discuss this again, but time runs very fast when it is interesting. And we are shortly going for a break, and then we shall go to another topic, and Doctor will be allowed to exit. But way forward, what should we be doing? What are you people doing? What should the public be doing? What should media be doing? What should Parliament be doing? Make that point, and as you respond to some of the issues that were raised here, and make it your closing remark as well.
Thank you very much, Charles. I think I'll start from the issue of alcohol and substance abuse that General Kulaije mentioned in a different way than the way the Member of Parliament is raising it. General Kulaije said that most of these, that list of people who have shot others in the armed forces was simply because of alcohol and not mental illness. True, maybe not so true, because we know that alcohol and substance abuse can actually be brought on by underlying mental illness. Frequently, people who have anxiety and depression end up drinking, and drinking heavily.
To hide their...
Yeah, they're kind of treating themselves, like self-treatment. If you don't look closely enough, you won't pick it. You'll only see the alcohol or drug. So we need to be mindful of that and not dismiss it. The other thing is alcohol and substances tend to also lead to certain forms of mental illness. If you have seen people who have drunk or smoked and then jumped out of windows and fractured their legs, when they reach the hospital, you see the fractured leg and you hear the alcohol. You don't see the others. But for us, when we assess, we see that actually this person became what we call psychotic, the real madness that people didn't see, which led them to behave a certain way. So it can cause people to shoot others because, I'll give an example, one of the conditions, and there are quite a number of conditions, is called pathological jealousy. That is caused, in fact, by excessive drinking of alcohol.
What is pathological jealousy?
What you see in the community is a man coming to shoot his wife. And it is because they believe that they're going out with someone else. And that is a delusion. It's an abnormal belief. Sometimes the woman is not going out with anybody else, but they strongly believe it because they have a delusion, which is a form of severe mental illness. And then they shoot or kill, whatever they do. So those things are out there in the community, except what we see are the vices, the crimes committed. That's what we see. That's what Sarah sees. That's what everybody sees. But we forget that underlying there are issues. And we need to find them and deal with them and even prevent them. What can we do? I think all of us need to work together. It is a problem for everybody, for the community, for the health sector, for government, for Parliament, for everyone, to try and see if we can prevent and also see if we can help those who find themselves in that unfortunate situation. We must, first of all, create an environment that helps people not to get into these conditions in the first place. Create those conditions. They can be social conditions, economic conditions that help people to have a better well-being than they do when they develop mental illness. Then we have to engage the public. Education, what we call mental health literacy, is very important because that's what helps us to understand the conditions, be able to identify them, and appropriately seek help. Okay. So people need to know what is mental health, what does it look like, and this is what we shall come back to talk about next time. What does it look like, and what do you do about it when you find it? Okay. That information is lacking largely. What does government do? Government needs to put the systems in place that support people when they are ill. Adequately funded systems that support the population in this. Parliament, you need to allocate the money. When I come to Parliament and say, Honorable Mapenduzi, I need money, I don't have enough medicine, I don't have enough health workers, I need to be helped. But that's not only for Butabika, for the rest of the units. If you...
Charles,
okay.
I mentioned the question of family, and you people are ignoring it. If you notice today, there are many young people have gone to substance abuse and alcohol. And when you check, actually, a good number of these young men, they have received excessive love from the parents. What they call love.
I'm told we have to end this first edition, this first episode here. But unfortunately, when we come back, Doctor, we are going into other politics, which you may not like so much, because you may actually begin to think we are ourselves not very...
If you are saying politicians are her candidates,
then she needs to
be part.
She might go overboard by studying us and thinking that these people are also mad.
She can enroll us
out because he doesn't want to be assessed.
But thank you so much. Let's go for a break right now.
But it will be good you stay. What's that?
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165*65# or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.
Ngawe nagambye kuleta muntu andikwa kano ketwolekedde kabongo erudanga bagamba kano ketwolekedde kasufu nnyo kamala njagala olabe ngawe nagambye tewemamaaza tulakalira maaso ku lutimbe wawawa.
Deposit money onto your Airtel Money account. Reactivate your Airtel Money account with a deposit of a minimum of 1,000 shillings and get 10 minutes free Airtel to Airtel calls valid for 24 hours. Offer is applicable for a one-time transaction. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Parents and guardians, this month of October, take all your children aged 15 years and below to the nearest health facility or outreach post for Integrated Child Health Days to receive a wide range of free services. The services will include immunization to protect them against killer yet vaccine-preventable diseases like measles, rubella, polio, diphtheria, whooping cough, pneumonia, meningitis, diarrhea, tetanus, hepatitis B, tuberculosis, and cancer of the cervix. Your child will also receive vitamin A and deworming tablets. Girls aged 10 years old and those who missed their second HPV vaccine dose will receive HPV vaccine to protect them against cancer of the cervix. Girls and women aged 15 to 49 years will also be immunized against tetanus and diphtheria. Due to polio outbreak in the region, every child under 5 years should be fully immunized as per the routine immunization schedule. Vaccines used for immunization are safe, effective, and free and have been approved by the Ministry of Health and World Health Organization. Remember to follow all the COVID-19 prevention measures, including wearing a mask when in public, hand washing with water and soap, and keeping a distance of at least 2 meters from another person. Integrated Child Health Days, a healthy child, a happy family. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF, World Health Organization, PATH, and partners.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy a 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back from that break, and this is Behind the Headlines this Wednesday, the 27th of October, 2021. My name is Charles Odongtho, and I have a very interesting, balanced panel. We have Honorable Mapinduzi, we have Dr. Juliet Naku, the Executive Director of Butabika Hospital. We have General Felix Kulaije of the UPDF, Operation Wealth Creation. And we have Council Sarah Birete. I'm very pleased. Doctor has accepted to stay and finish the discussion. I am happy. We are going to now be more careful because we are under watch to see whether our brains are all intact as we discuss the next topic. Before we go into... The meter will be reading. If the meter starts crossing 50, that and it is mentometer,
You are in good hands. Don't worry.
Treatment immediately, emergency created. Exactly. And an ambulance will be called. A mental case is here in the studio. My producer say we have some questions. Many people are asking questions. Can we start with those, and then we go into the other topic of the issue of domestic terror. Joshua Kweviha, should we start with Mugume? Okay. The operator is quite fast.
It's fast.
Mugume Dunston, living in a stressful environment can make you more likely to develop a mental illness. Things like living in poverty or having an abusive family put a lot of stress on your brain and often trigger mental illnesses. That's what Mugume says. The next, Francis Serere, is that a name or a place? Okay. I agree with you in the discussion. Mental challenge is now a big problem, and it's worse with the youth group I have seen. The issue is government could increase centers to handle these cases. Joshua Kweviha says Ugandans need to go back to the roots of tradition to initiate children to grow into adults. This will help people go through challenges and life functioning, since it's the main cause, yes, of mental disorder. Just like the person has called you Kano Kulaije. The person knows you for Kano. Kano had become your name, but we prayed so hard, and like Mapinduzi says, we shall pray for more. From Charlotte in Chanja, she says, I'm so glad that you're discussing such an important issue. My question is, are there any rights that defend people with mental illnesses at their workplaces? Sarah, you will answer that. I'm Venus from Kansanga. I had the same problem, but society has never believed that mental health is a disease like other diseases. Treatment is quite expensive. Availability of drugs It's mainly in Kampala.
Yeah, that's
Thank
true.
you. Ngobi Isaac from Jinja City says, having good mental health is a combination of factors. For example, you feel a sense of well-being, and also you are able to make a contribution to your community and others. But for me, I do coach mental health sensitization through the football drills to young people.
Very good.
That's a good one. That was the last one for now. We will take more. Sarah, there was a question on, are there some aspects of, legal rights for mental people? Someone is asking.
Yes, I see them mainly in the civil society fraternity, and we even have the mental wellness concept, including sessions, yoga, for staff, for their mental well-being. Normally we bring in counseling, assessment, support through counseling, and if the counselor, advises seeking medical attention, then we reach out to the professionals. But also, mental illness, some people taking a break, because normally it's stress, increased stress levels, domestic violence, especially on the part of women. I'm not saying men are not affected. Men are also affected by domestic violence. So maybe I leave it more. Domestic violence is the major.
But men probably descend into the
of course
the humble group, silence, the withdrawal
and
group.
that silence is killing. As much as Afande Kraije is advocating for, the men don't cry concept. Silence on domestic violence in men is also increasing. Mental disorder rates in society in general, it is terrible. Nobody needs to live in a stressful environment. Nobody.
But
so even if
those environments exist.
No, you see that they can be temporary stress. Life is not a straight line, but elevated stress levels is a major cause of mental breakdown.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to the other topic that we are supposed to discuss. Quite sad what has happened in the last few days. I think 2 days later, first the Komamboga blast. There was a discussion whether this was a bomb blast, whether it was just a local homemade, explosive, whether it was, some people first thought it was a transformer. Eventually it turns out it was one of those locally made bombs, but it took life. And then 1 or 2 days later, we hear a bus is also attacked, or was supposed to be attacked, but from what we saw, statements doing the rounds, that the person who lost life was actually one of the criminals, or suspected criminals. But what we now know is there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of uncertainty, and of course this is finding already a bad, stressful COVID environment. And today the minister in charge of internal affairs, my friend General David Muhoozi, went and briefed Parliament and said the situation is real, and the question then is, what is this intention? And we need to discuss that. So let me start with General Kulaije. Are we losing the fight? Because you know that before this blast, we had many people being killed in Masaka region, the greater Masaka region. Then initially before that, we had other incidences, some people being killed. Are we losing the security or the insecurity fight?
Thank you, Charles. We are not. If you look beyond our borders and look at even those that are more organized than we are in terms of resources, the criminality has been going up. Someone was telling me in New York alone, the number of people killed per day, you would combine those who have been killed in this country for the last 5 years, per day. So criminality has gone up across the globe, but we are not losing it. And the fact that we have 2 cases since 2010, it's not because the terrorists had given us a holiday. The vigilance we have been exercising, both the population and security agencies, helped in defending this country or protecting this country from terrorists succeeding. The fact I would like the viewers to know is that terrorism has no borders. Terrorism has no face. Terrorism has no religion. So some people tended to imagine it is Muslims. No. Some Christians have been involved. Terrorism has no tribe. If you recall, our neighbors to the east, I think last year but one, and the other year, and the other year, these cases were happening. You remember the case in France? In fact, they have just been trying one of the criminals in France who was involved in a terrorist act last year, and even this year. So we are not losing the fight. And for me, like I've said, that there have only been 2 cases is a sign that both the population and we in security agencies have been doing what we are supposed to do. Now, the murders you referred to, again, I think we fell short of doing our part in massacre. And once we stepped up our act, you saw the improvement. I think when peace has taken some time, some complacency may set in, admittedly, but these are lessons for us. If anybody sleeps on the job, definitely we do normally take action. Like the case of Komamboga could have been avoided if people accepted to observe the curfew regulations. The case of indiscipline is responsible for the success of terrorism in Komamboga. You know what is ironic is that one of the pictures I saw, one of the survivors was wearing a Muslim cape, and yet this is a pork joint. It flabbergasted me.
He's eating the pork comparatively. Can't he meet past other people?
I don't know, but what I know is that. But the point I'm making, we are not losing it. Criminality can succeed occasionally. The bottom line, in my humble view, continued vigilance both from the population and we in security agencies is the first key factor. Then 2, coordination and cooperation with both regional and international actors on terrorism activities is very critical and crucial. Sharing intelligence, because basically dealing with terrorism is an intelligence operation. Sharing intelligence is very critical. And let me also be like other Ugandans, now that we have a member of parliament, when we bring a budget to parliament as the government, then they say, no, the vote for security is too big. Forgetting, actually it is security and the governance. It's not security alone. So, when you look at this budget and you scream, and yet you have individuals that are always threatening to attack our country. 2, not forgetting the role Uganda has played in stabilizing the region. Those who are interested in destabilizing the region are not happy. Certainly they will continue. 3, if you look at the case in the Sahel region and the Maghreb, terrorism is on the rise. Little did anybody expect that terrorism would move down south. The case in Mozambique, you are aware. So we have been almost an island of stability. And some people may have reacted, forgetting that these things can happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just to set the record straight, I checked very quickly for the facts. New York, last year, homicide were 500. 500, that was for last year, that's in New York. And in 2019, it had reduced to 319 homicides in New York. That's for 2019. I think one of the worst was 1990, when they had 2,200 homicides in that year alone, 1990. So the figure keeps fluctuating.
And that is what state?
Yes.
In a superpower.
Okay. Let me, Sarah, you want to make a follow-up. One of the things that we need to talk about, General referred to, and I will bring in Honorable Mapenduzi as well on the same. In the aftermath of the attacks against some people, including, I think, the former IGP, the Assistant IGP Andrew Kawesi, but especially after the death of Abiriga, I think around 2018, Parliament passed gave up to almost 4 trillion shillings to security to tackle the issue of, I think the president, actually now I remember, the president came out with what he called the 14-point security, strategy.
In 2018, yeah.
Yes. One of them was that there should be, deployment of LDUs seriously, but also there was the case for CCTV cameras that must be. Now, today, General David Muhoozi was telling Parliament that the Komamboga case may not be easy to track because there was no camera. So the question that I saw Leader of Opposition following up on, I was checking on social media, is that there should be an audit, therefore, of how the 4 trillion plus money was used to respond to some of the threats we have. I need us to touch on that and, are we getting value for money? We know that threats will be there, like General says. Even in the US, the superpower of the world currently has it. But the question is not that there will not be these threats or even being attacked. In fact, the more we develop, the more we shall be attacked. Yes. But the issue is, what are we doing? And is what we are doing adequate enough? Are we giving value for money for what we have, the little that we are getting?
Well, Charles, Afande did refer to, before I get to the cameras, the lockdown measures. And of course, this Komamboga, the Gidaba being open, and even Parliament has ordered that the owner of the bar be arrested and the security around the bar for having opened when bars are supposed to be closed. But we all know that many bars, especially in upscale town, Kololo, everywhere are open. And many politically privileged patrons have been flocking these bars. Even it has come out, I think, in Daily Monitor that Digida Bar, the main patrons are security personnel from the police, from the army, from covert operations, are people who flock this bar, mainly under lockdown, knowing that they're supposed to close it down, and it's not the only one. But that's besides the point.
I can actually add, 2 weeks ago, at around 8, 9, 10, in Bugolovi, someone told me
Bars are
9.
open. Bars are open.
In fact, the LDUs and other police officers in uniform were the ones directing the cars of the patrons.
Yes,
You park
of
well.
course.
At 9 p.m.
Of course, bars are open, and I think even the fathers of the closure as a COVID measure now, I think it has outlived its period, really. But that's besides the point, because from the security perspective, there should be security even without closure of bars, because if there was no COVID, these places would be functional. So I think we should address this point from that perspective. My concern as an ordinary person, we did see the warnings by the British High Commission on this current terror alert on October 14th, and they addressed it in a short message saying it was most likely to happen, and then they are warning their citizens, not to avoid, entertainment places, crowded places. And our police came out and they downplayed the alert and said that this was a scaremonger kind of communication instead of heightening the security measures. And my concern as a citizen is, how prepared are we in terms of taking heed of such alerts? What is our capacity for security cooperation? Because terrorism is not necessarily a national problem. We know that the world will never be the same after the 9/11 attacks. And Kampala has experienced bombings, most notoriously between 96, 99, and then the 2010 Kampala bombings. So if you get such information, and in addition to the warning of the British High Commission, allegedly there was also information from Kenya on the transfer of money from South Africa, from the Islamic State allies, coming this way for the terror alert. So you have two kinds of information. And you do not act. You do not even alert people. You don't prepare them. You don't, because how would you fight terrorism? You don't fight terrorism alone by being equipped with budgets and equipment, because the targets of these merciless and ruthless killers are the citizens. They are not security targets in most of the times. They are those who go for security installations. But most times they look for crowded places, they look for these unarmed, vulnerable targets.
Of course, sir, I'm not talking of budget to defend ourselves.
No. I'm making a broad case. I'm talking of a broad case. To me, I'm disappointed about failure to heed information and act to information when it is availed to us on terror alerts. And then people, we have people injured. We have about 2 that have lost lives. And I think even today, there was a terror alert that was averted by security.
Is
somewhere.
that the one of
Yes, I saw in
Mulago?
the evening news at 7 p.m. So as much as there is complacency, there is this laxity. Yes, we all been focusing on COVID. What is expected of security? I know we've normally come on top of the game and averted these global threats, but I think this time we did not do well in terms of preparedness.
Okay, Honorable Mapenduzi, the value for money, the preparedness, did we sleep on the job?
Well, just rightly as you put it, today the State Minister for Internal Affairs, General David Muhoozi, indeed gave a brief to Parliament. And I want to say he did, from what I picked from the brief, but also looking at how majority of the members of Parliament received the message. I think he demonstrated that they are trying their best to do a good job, and I appreciate that. But I think a lot more needs to be done, just like Madam Sarah's put it. General talked about Parliament not providing enough resources. to the security, component. I'm a first timer. I'm new in Parliament. I'll tell you that. But from what I have followed, and how members of Parliament take matters related to security, I think Parliament has demonstrated a lot of commitment. I think resources have been provided. Of course, I know resources will always not be enough, just like every sector will say we don't have enough. But I think Parliament has been committed to making sure that the monies that you need is available. But we think we need to do more, because the challenges keep on building. And so every day there are new challenges that we need to. So even Parliament needs to be flexible, but also the security agencies need to be a lot more, flexible, and know the period is a lot more demanding. So it calls for a lot of vigilance, but also preparation, just like Madam Sarah put it. When General gave his brief today to Parliament, one of the things, just like you put it, Charles, and this takes me to talking about the key things that the President had said should be done to deal with, the insecurity and all that. And the question of the cameras. I have seen in a number of places throughout the country, cameras have been mounted. And I think it's making a significant contribution. But I think a lot more needs to be done. But also the other thing is about public involvement in ensuring safety and security. Because I don't think it's going to be the responsibility of government to put a camera in a place like that pork joint. What the Honorable Minister stated in Parliament was that they are unable to do a lot more of the tracing from inside that facility, because even that facility does not have a camera. And I think we need to move a step further as a country in making sure that public places, whether you run a bar, you run a restaurant also, there should be measures put in place that deals with the aspect of safety and security. Because the question of terrorism, whether domestic or so on, it's far above the politics we talk about. All of us get involved. It touches on every life. And so every citizen needs to know that it's a threat to all of us. And so we need to be involved, first in making sure all of us are safe. So those in the private sector need to get involved in making sure the people, their clients, are safe. There is something they can do. But also the security agencies need to, like you put it, some of us are very concerned with the level of what I would call selective, nature of implementing the SOPs. There is a curfew that has been put in place. But there are people who think they are more Ugandans because they hold powerful positions or because they are connected. And so life goes on in total disregard of, the SOPs and whatever has been put in place. And we know about them. Now, if we allow a country like ours to be managed in that way, then we are creating problem for ourselves. Because why should we allow people who are charged with the responsibility of implementing such decisions get compromised and allow things to move on like that? But also there is another problem, Charles. There is a culture that has been built in this country where people, our level of preparedness, day-to-day level of preparedness is wanting. Today we have this problem of this bomb blast. All direction is, everyone is looking at that. There is panic. People are trying to appear to be doing something. And then tomorrow, people forget. They're running into something else. I think we need to check our level of preparedness. how we build systems that remain constantly functional so we can manage some of these issues. But I want to appreciate the security agencies. I think much as there are challenges that they have to deal with, and we have to frankly talk about it, I think they are trying to do their best to deal with that kind of... I was in Pade when General Paul Lokech was being buried. And a few of us, I remember one member of parliament came and whispered and said, my brother, there is a problem. And I said, what is the problem? And she said, she's a lot more senior in parliament than I am. She has been there much longer. And said, we have received information a suspected terrorist has just been picked. And they are trying to cause a problem here. And she said, we need to make sure people don't panic. All right? And a number of us started getting the information, but also it's about not causing unnecessary panic. That can also cause problem. And how the army, how the security agencies manage, nobody got to know. It's only when people started seeing on Twitter and Facebook from Kampala. But of course, many of us had known the information had gone silently to those who were believed to be able to manage the information and not cause unnecessary panic and all that. So if the army or the security agencies were able to detect that, and there are a few other examples that are given, I think we should appreciate them for that.
Okay.
But there is obviously need to do a lot more in terms of making sure the level of preparedness, but also the level of discipline. Okay. Discipline not just only with the army, but also with the people in government.
Okay.
There is so much there is some level of arrogance that has grown in this country. Even when you go to different places where they do security, checks, there are Ugandans who do not want to be checked just because they think they're so powerful, and we are creating problem for ourselves. So for me, I think this is a much bigger question. And also, General, I think at your level and your colleagues, you need to have very frank discussions. Like the police as spokesperson made a statement. When the bomb blasted the pork joint happened. First, he said this is it's domestic, and the bomb is poorly made. And as a Ugandan, my business is not about whether it's poorly made or it's a bomb. It has taken life, and so we should stop making reckless statements. It hurts. Life has been lost. Yeah. Then secondly, you begin to say, some of them were putting on red, and what is the business with putting on a red T-shirt? Are we trying to bring the angle of politics so you can? It's very diversionary. We should stop bringing politics, and there is always this kind of rush, where something happens, and then you want to find excuses, then you want to begin blaming or tagging a particular group of people, even before you have gone deeper to find out what the problem is. So I think that needs to be checked and needs to be really well managed.
Thank you. Dr. Juliet, your colleagues here are talking about level of preparedness, the level of security consciousness. You run a big institution which brings in many people, Butabika Hospital. Are you guys prepared? What are you doing exactly to create a kind of, are you sensitizing your people that this has now happened? Next is going to be any other facility looking at this threat of terrorism?
Well, that's a very good question. Any institutions actually prepared for this kind of insecurity? Hospitals are public places.
Yeah.
Anybody and everybody walks in.
True.
And you cannot limit people that much, because you may be limiting patients that you need to help.
Yeah.
So we do allow people in. However, if you need admission, for example, in Butabika, we ensure that you have nothing on you that will cause harm to anybody.
Either to yourself or to other people.
Or to other people, because it's a mental institution. We do checks. We check the person
At the entrance?
on admission.
How about at the entrance? As people come in and
Well,
go out?
not at the entrance really, because at the entrance there are many people who walk in. We don't put. Sometimes you can't, because some people walk in very ill and they're very ill and they're brought by police, and you can't check everybody. And those may actually be the ones who are dangerous. We have had some who are really dangerous and have caused injury to some of our staff. So at admission, once you have been let into the office of the doctor who's going to see you, you're not allowed to come in with certain things. And once you're given a bed, you're going to be, I don't want to call it stripped. What do they call it? Because that sounds very bad. We shall remove your clothes.
Body check.
Something like body check. We shall remove your clothes and give you uniform. So we know what is on your body. And we give you these uniforms. That is a security measure, really. Because we have had individuals actually who have caused harm to our staff because they're hiding things under their clothes. Knives, matchboxes, and things like that. Also, we have drills, fire drills.
Yeah.
Our security teams do regular fire drills. Because that kind of institution, anything can happen. If a fire caught in a ward, and our wards are big, with very many mentally ill people, to the tune of 150, 200 men ill in one ward, with only a few. So we do secure those kinds of...
What's the entire population of Botabika Hospital?
Patients? We have officially, Sarah said it, officially 550, but at any one time, we have at least 800, minimum 800. Most of the time, we are ranging between 850 and close to 1,000, especially these days. So the numbers have gone really up. And we have to be cautious.
Yeah.
We have to be. So we do those in a limited way. Of course, we're not army people. We are health workers, but we do those precautionary measures. In the alcohol and drug unit especially, we do check. We have a unit that treats people who are really, really addicted, and the security there will not let you in unless you're checked at the gate, particularly for that unit, because we know it is a risk. So we do our best without necessarily making people uncomfortable who actually are coming for care.
To be helped.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Fande, you had raised your hand.
I wanted to make some clarification on how Honorable picked my statement. I didn't say Parliament doesn't allocate us resources. I said when people saw the governance and security budget, they raised the alarm that was a lot of money. And yet, just like training a psychiatrist is expensive, planning, preparing, and equipping national security is not a cheap exercise. It requires a lot of resources. To train an anti-terrorist officer, it takes not less than 4 months. Just one training, leave alone the various levels he must go through. But so I wanted to clarify that. Parliament allocates the resources. It's so that people tend to think that security takes a bigger portion. And then the question of saying it was domestic terrorism, what I'm sure the police spokesperson was talking about, you see there is both domestic terrorism, domestic terror, and international terrorism. So we wanted to clarify on that difference, that this is a home-initiated terrorism,
But
not...
in their sleeper cells?
Even if it is ADF sleeper cells, it is domestically initiated, as opposed to what the Islamic State was claiming that was theirs.
Maybe a question.
I was clarifying on the difference.
Just to be from
why
this,
did our...
on the same question of whether it's domestic or not. We know that since 2018, after the arrest of Jamil Mukula and a few, yes, ADF transformed into, now it's known as the Central African Province of Islamic State. So even when you say it is ADF, whether they have bases here or not, now that they are a department of Islamic State or even based in DRC, is it domestic, is it transnational, is it transboundary, what is it? Then secondly, if in August, I think 28th August 2021, the president said we are planning to move into DRC to wipe out ADF because it was an imminent threat that they wanted to attack Uganda. In this year, what happened?
But also, maybe before General comes in, what I'm looking at, General, is yes, you have clarified on that there is the domestic, terrorism and all that, and I think my concern is with the kind of utterances and also the aspect of trying to downplay certain things. When you say, this is domestic and that is why the bombs are poorly this, and it's a bomb. It has taken life. Secondly, what if it starts from that poorly made bomb and tomorrow it's something much worse?
Yeah.
So for me, it's about the threat, it's about the damage, it's about our own safety and security that needs to be taken a lot more seriously than just hurrying to make statements and all that.
But also, General, you need to respond.
I take it.
Yeah.
You need to respond to some people. I saw people asking, what parameter is our security outfits using to deny when there was information that that ISIS had claimed responsibility, and then our people decided to deny and say no, it's not true. How do you do that?
You see, as intelligence is being collected, both before the act and then post the act, you correlate your intelligence with what you have seen.
And process information. Why do they rush to announce?
You are putting me in a very tight corner. Allow me speak from my experience.
Yes.
You see, when you are
experience and training, that's what makes you those are the things that make you an expert.
That's right. Yeah. When you are a spokesperson of a security outfit, first of all, you have an obligation to inform the public as to what has happened, what so far you know why it has happened, and then what you are doing about it. Because at any one time, when you delay on information, speculation picks up. Okay? And for you to deal with the speculation, to bring it down so that the facts are received, at times may be an uphill task. So you need to be timely in information giving, but also accurate. You must be timely and also accurate. But it may also be true that those who have processed the information may have made an error. And therefore the information you have received either may not be complete, or it has been maybe overtaken by events. That is possible. But in this particular case, indeed, like the issue of rudimentary, I don't know how Honorable Peduzi bring this about. But the fact that this man has a lot of humor. When you see the materials used, because I can assure you, international terrorists are a bit sophisticated. They are well resourced in the first instance. By the way, they are individuals and the countries that sponsor these terrorists. So they are quite well resourced. And therefore they will use very sophisticated material, like what we saw in 2010. But two, for me, what I wouldn't want us to lose sight of, the fact that we have been at peace for 12 years from terrorism, rather 11 years, is testimony that a lot of improvement has been done by this country to strengthen our intelligence gathering capability, our prevention measures, and of course mobilization of the population. You know, as I think it is the Honorable who put it, or Charles, that as you develop, the rate of threats also increases. Not only that, as the population grows, today we are discussing with Dr. Muhumuza the nexus between security and development. And he concurred with the Defense White Paper of 2004 that poverty was going to be a security threat in this country. That's what, when we were doing the defense review in 2004, we did point out 15 major threats against Uganda's national security. And you won't believe, 75% of the threats were identified are non-military. So when you have a growing population, you definitely have both opportunities and threats. Opportunities because this is a big market, it's a big labor force, but if this labor force does not have jobs, then they are vulnerable to being attracted by criminal groups to join them for some small pay. So we should not lose fact, or it should not be lost to us, that as you look at security, it's not only a matter of the security agencies, it's a multi-sectoral problem.
Okay. We are now winding. I need us, tomorrow the president is addressing the nation. There is issues that we think that he might touch on, maybe COVID, security definitely, and this recent bomb blast. I'm not sure he will touch on bail again for now, but maybe as a third topic.
Please allow Sarah rest because
we are winding up in 30 seconds each. What would you want the president to emphasize? Let's start with Sarah and end with the Honorable Mapenduzi.
Well, I think as the president and the commander-in-chief of the security forces, so he's the head of security, he has to assure Ugandans that they are safe and secure under his leadership. And that must be demonstrated. It is not just something to talk about. So he needs to demonstrate to the country that he's in charge. And it would also be interesting to know, except, you know, as much as Afande Kwai just said, there must be communication to the people. I've seen in developed countries, they keep saying what we know so far when such an incident happens. True. So you don't rush to give people half-baked information just because you need to fill the gap of communication. You can say that so far this has happened, the materials could be locally made, but we shall establish, we shall investigate and establish. But
the American service guys are so good at it. I saw one who repeated it to different journalists, bombarding them with questions like 15 times.
They never do.
And the lady said, would turn, listen to this journalist, then she would say, I'm not here to speculate.
Yes.
What we know so far is that this has happened. We have picked 2 people. We are talking to them. We are interrogating them. That's what I can say.
And we shall
then it turns to, and then it turns to another journalist.
Yeah.
Another question, really? Simply calling for similar answers. The same answer. What we know so far is this. We are investigating. We will come back to brief you and the nation.
It is not just a one-off. You look at the unfortunate period when we lost our Lion of Mogadishu. Immediately before medical examinations are done, people are announcing the cause of death. You know, you cause all sorts of misunderstandings with the population. Really, that habit must stop. and it is unbecoming, unprofessional, disturbing, and really, it needs to stop.
Oh dear. General, what would you want your commander-in-chief to tackle tomorrow?
My commander-in-chief is always on spot. He's spot on when he comes to address the nation. One thing I know about my president is that he never rushes. He will always give you information that is well considered, and indeed he has things put in perspective.
Okay.
But lastly, I think on our part, I don't want to go without saying it, on our part as security agent actors, we must be on our alert.
Yeah.
We cannot afford to sleep. We are in a region that is infested with instability. You know what's happening in South Sudan. Now Sudan has also gone down. You know what's happening in Eastern DRC. I think sometime this year there was a grenade blast in Kigali. So we cannot afford
to
relax.
Thank you. Dr. Juliet, what would you want the president to address tomorrow?
I think the president needs to alert the population that there's help for any mental health problems that might arise, because they will arise. COVID has brought them on. Insecurity is going to worsen them. Nothing brings on mental ill health like insecurity.
Okay.
So I think as government we need to understand that. And by the way, normally the mental health epidemic goes beyond the causes of it. Usually goes beyond the emergencies that cause it. We need to understand this and be able to offer help. So I wish that the president would touch on this and make people realize that there is help.
Finally, Honorable Mapenduzi, what would you want the president to touch on tomorrow?
Well, looking at the situation, I think the president is majorly going to talk about the security situation in the country. But I think, as it has been expressed by a number of my colleagues here, I think the country needs to look broadly at not just what is happening today, but how to deal with the bigger picture. And I think the president needs to focus at that.
Okay.
You talk about the growing population, more young people, you know, poverty is increasing and all that. So it should not just be a kind of a fire brigade approach, where today there is a problem and then we try to. I think we need to systematically come up with how we can sustain the struggle. So far, positive things have been done. But when we keep on seeing this and this, and it sends a message that we have not done enough.
Okay.
So the president needs to look at how to sustainably come with things that are not just making statements, just like she put it.
But
because
action.
Sometimes we hear a lot and the same story every day.
Thank you.
So that
you
is
want
my
to see
expectation.
action from the president, the commander-in-chief, and the and his men in charge. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Mapenduzi. Thank you very much, Dr. Juliet, for finding time to come here and share with us very good knowledge about mental health situation in the country. I'll definitely love to invite you again and have a more lengthy discussion on the same. Thank you very much, Honorable General Kulaije Felix of the UPDF. Thank you very much, Councillor Sarah Birete. From my technical team, the producers, Tiang, Ivan, and the rest of the team, William, and all the entire team, Fred, Morris, and all the rest. From the technical team here in the studio, Margaret and the team, I want to thank you all very much. And to you out there listening to us, please, from behind the headlines, our sympathies and condolences to families of innocent lives that were lost. Certainly to the young people, never accept to be used. Please try as much as possible, despite the difficulties and challenges of life, to ensure that you put your energies to better work, and be patient. Something could be better. From us here, thank you very much. COVID still exists, so make no mistake about it. Ensure that you take good care of yourself, of your family, and of the entire society that we live in. Bye-bye. God bless you, and take care.
This weekend on UBC.
Rejection can be a very daunting thing. Rejection can also be a very frightening thing in